14 years. It took this long for The Incredibles 2, the long-awaited sequel to Disney and Pixar's 2004 movie The Incredibles, to be released on Friday, June 15, 2018. Normally, one may be concerned if a sequel or prequel is going to suck if it takes this long. Example? Look at the 16-year gap between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace. The Star Wars prequel performed poorly compared to its predecessor, but is it the same for The Incredibles 2? Going back to the gap between both Incredibles movies, even before the short film Bao is played, the cast members from Sam Jackson as Frozone and Craig T. Nelson as Bob Parr reminds you that a long time has passed between both Incredibles titles and that animation tech changed since 2004. We can get into the short film Bao in another video if needed, but otherwise, let's see how The Incredibles 2 holds up almost 1.5 decades after its predecessor. Some quick notes: this is my first movie review on my channel, and yes, it's been a week since the sequel's release. I don't have any experience using movie clips or musical scores without getting copyright claims either, so I'll just be showing photos on screen. As we get into my somewhat late review of The Incredibles 2, keep in mind that spoilers lie ahead. The Incredibles 2 starts off not with a TV interview, but with an interrogation scene between government agent Rick Dicker and Tony Reidinger, the boyfriend-ish character to Violet Parr. The Incredibles 2 impressively recreates the ending scenes from Incredibles 1, from Dash's elementary school race to the reveal of the Underminer, all from Tony's point of view. The Incredibles 2 further picks off where Incredibles 1 left off, as Tony confesses accidentally finding out Violet's identity as a super when she unintentionally throws her mask off her face in frustration with being left with baby brother Jack during her family's encounter with the villain. With this reveal to Dicker, Tony shortly gets his mind wiped and the movie progresses. The Incredibles attempt to stop the Underminer from robbing Metroville's bank, but to no avail as the villain succeeds and escapes the struggle. The Incredibles barely stopped the Underminer's drill machine from destroying City Hall, but were detained by police, as supers are still illegal since the events of The Incredibles 1. The Incredibles are released with the help of Rick Dicker and get a couple weeks to stay at a motel. As I think of this, there was an Incredibles video game back in 2005 called Incredibles Rise of the Underminer that took place after the events of the previous movie. Since I never played the game, I wonder if The Incredibles 2 ties into the video game or completely ignores it. As Incredibles 2 continues, we get into more personal stories with each of the Parrs, as well as for other supporting characters like Lucius, aka Frozone. Did I forget to mention that he was another part of the battle versus the Underminer? Anyways, we'll get into more of him shortly. For Helen Parr, aka Elastigirl, she, Mr. Incredible, and Frozone get secretly picked by superhero fan DevTech Winston Dever and his sister Evelyn to a secret meeting to change the public's perception of superheroes and to make supers great again. Wow! Pixar feeding off of you-know-who's election slogan, or just a coincidence during the movie's development? Regardless, Elastigirl gets picked for the mission for DevTech, and that leaves Mr. Incredible at home to attend to the Parr family's needs. Yep, this is Elastigirl's movie. In this case, Incredibles 2 could very well be an Elastigirl spin-off if Disney and Pixar wanted. With her in charge, you might say that Disney could be pushing a feminist agenda, but luckily, they handled her lead very well without going into a preachy women empowerment message. Not that I'm against gender equality or anything like that. While there isn't that much going for Frozone, he still has more screen time in the Incredibles sequel than in the original. He's still a family friend, supports Bob Parr and his family, even going as far as to offer housing for the Parr family before they moved into the motel. Speaking of which, while Elastigirl is away, Bob Parr, Violet, Dash, and Jack get to stay at a loaned mansion, courtesy of Winston Dever. And speaking of said mansion, Robert Parr finds himself struggling with being proud and supportive of Helen, while being simultaneously jealous of her being front and center of the action. He also deals with attending to parental responsibilities of being a father to his kids after being previously a lead superhero. In short, Bob Parr needs to learn how to be a supportive father while satisfying his need to be helpful to his family. Moving on to Violet, Teenager problems is the real deal. Recall that Tony Reitinger's memory was wiped after he accidentally finds out Violet's superhero identity. Violet wouldn't figure this out until later on in the movie. Until then, she gets frustrated when Tony seemingly acts like he doesn't know her. On to Dash. There isn't a lot around him. He's a middle child that doesn't get much attention. No major problems to face, unlike his sister. He seems like just a superhero with the power of super speed. However, there is one problem that he faces. Math. I imagine that a lot of middle school, high school, and college students can relate. When I saw the scene from the trailer when Bob went on a rant about changing math, I thought that Dash would have so much trouble with math that he would suggest to his father about the school changing the values of math, then Bob going, "Why would they change math? Math is math." It turns out helping out Dash with math and decimals is yet another parental struggle for Bob as he initially gets dumbfounded with how Dash is taught math in school. Overall, Dash was just there for comedic relief. Now ZaxXx, the jack of all trades. This is where he steals the show, everyone. I'll get to the comedy skits later, but ZaxXx really steals the spotlight with being a baby. Laughing, crying, his superpowers getting triggered. In short, he really feels like an actual baby. As Elastigirl's mission to make supers legal again continues, she gains more and more support from the public as she discovers a new villain known as the Screenslaver, who has been hypnotizing people through video screens somehow. Winston Endeavor also gathers other supers from around the world, or all over the country. Some of these new supers include Screech, Helectrix, Reflux, Brick, Crosshauer, don't know how to pronounce his name, and Void. Now, no offense to these new supers, they are fans of Elastigirl and the Incredibles, especially Void as a fan, but you know that they were just made for this movie. They don't have the same prestige as supers like Thunderhead, Stratogale, Dynaguy, Gazer Beam, and Splashdown. To their credit, I'm sure that they'd hold their own if they were given more action and attention, perhaps in their own adventures. I mean, for crying out loud, we have a super named after a digestive disease. Now, who is this Screenslaver guy we're talking about? At first, it seems that Elastigirl caught the villain and revealed his identity, but it later turns out that as she starts connecting the dots, she gets captured with Evelyn being behind the Screenslaver. Yep, another plot twist trope of someone else being the real villain after employing misdirection. Evelyn reveals her motivations behind the Screenslaver and takes control of Elastigirl, and later Mr. Incredible, Frozone, and the other heroes through hypnotic goggles she has invented. By this time, The Incredibles 2 turns into a rescue story as Dash, ZaxXx, and Violet, who renounces her renouncing of heroes, rescues their parents, Frozone, and the supers from Evelyn's control and to take her down for almost butchering supers becoming legal again. Bear with me everyone, I'm almost done. While I'm just about done with the plot, let's now get into the comedy, and boy did audiences laugh a lot in the theaters. Recall how I said that ZaxXx steals the spotlight in the Incredibles sequel. I just find ZaxXx so amusing with how self-aware he is about everyone around him, and the way he looks and listens in on his family's conversations, and always having a smile on his face. That, and he laughs at all the mischief he's causing, just like a real baby. He even gets his own moment with his own nemesis during Bob Parr's struggles with fatherly responsibilities. I'm not kidding. There's a whole fight scene with him against a raccoon outside the Parr family's lone mansion where ZaxXx relentlessly uses his powers against the villainous raccoon, and audiences loved every moment. I wonder if this is an origin story of Sly Cooper or Rocket Raccoon. Come on Disney and Pixar, make an incredible spin-off with Rocket Raccoon vs. ZaxXx happen. Continuing more with ZaxXx is that after his superpowers become known, Bob Parr returns to Edna mode for help, and she bonds so well with taking care of ZaxXx and helping Bob protect when ZaxXx's powers are triggered. Edna charges a fee for superhero costumes, but babysits for free. Continuing, remember how Violet struggles with hanging out with Tony? This part becomes a comedy gold when Bob tries to help Violet get together with Tony, when he takes the kids to a diner that Tony works at as a waiter. When Violet gets surprised by this appearance, She squirts water out her nostrils full force. The audience kept laughing at this moment, perhaps more than any other in the movie. As I watched The Incredibles sequel, I noticed that there were many throwbacks to the original Incredibles, but when I was making this review a couple days later, I frustratingly recalled only a few of them. Darn my memory. But anyways, Frozone's intro is the same as his appearance in the Battle vs. Syndrome's Omnidroid. Frozone! Yeah! Remember the train derailment that Mr. Incredible barely stopped in the first Incredibles? There was a rescue scene involving Elastigirl saving passengers of a newly opened monorail, and it was nearly derailed the same way as Mr. Incredible's train, but no casualties. Let's not also forget that after Evelyn, the real screenslaver, was caught and arrested, the Parr family was about to drop off Violet and Tony to see a movie. There was a car chase with criminals and police shooting at each other, just like the car chase that Mr. Incredible stopped at the beginning of the previous movie. Even the Parr family suits up just the way they did when they started their fight against the Underminer. Speaking of which, I see a connection between the Underminer and Bon Voyage. Both villains rob a bank and foil the hero, or heroes, from stopping them and getting away, and both were not mentioned again after the aftermath of their encounter. Interesting. Moving to the 9th inning of this review, the animation really shines in The Incredibles 2. It keeps the art style of the original, but updated with 2018 animation technology. I also find it peculiar that the characters, mainly the Parr family, looks like they have bags under their eyes throughout the movie. Don't know if this is the art style or something else though. When it comes to the music, there's a spy vibe when listening to the very familiar Incredibles theme song. The score is not like other superhero movies in this sense that it doesn't sound like the score came from the MCU, which is a good thing. There's also a lot of immersion to the time period that The Incredibles 2 takes place in. What I mean is that there's a lot of showcasing the 50s/60s lifestyle and the technology from that era, from the vintage TVs to the type of cars that are used. There's even a Johnny Quest cartoon that appears on the TV screens that the characters watch. There's a lot of flashing lights when it comes to the scenes featuring the screensaver, so much that during the past week, seizures were of concern for watching the movie on the big screen. There's also a possible plot hole that I want to briefly cover. Everyone in Incredibles 2 is surprised to learn of ZaxXx's powers. Even Edna was surprised. Yet, didn't she discuss with Helen over ZaxXx's possible powers in the previous movie? Even when ZaxXx started using his powers when Syndrome tried to baby nap him, sure, it was far up in the air, but even Incredibles noticed something was wrong. Maybe this is a plot hole, maybe it's not. It's up to you to decide. On a final note, when I heard of the Screenslaver, I thought that it was going to be some social commentary about how TV and electronic screens on phones and computers are enslaving society and making everyone dependent on technology. Now maybe this was not intended and that I might be looking too deep into this, but what's wrong with food for thought? Now, after this long and detailed review, what do I think of The Incredibles 2? It's worth the 14-year wait. It's a return to form for this super family, and then some. It had great fight scenes, the comedy was entertaining. Maybe I'll get into this in another video, but one of the only real problems to the sequel is that the villain is underwhelming compared to Syndrome. Evelyn's motivation for the Screenslaver isn't as compelling compared to Syndrome's feelings of betrayal from the supers he looked up to. Also, pacing during the scenes with Bob and his family as Helen is away felt like it kept dragging on and on. Otherwise, The Incredibles 2 is a must-see superhero movie this summer, and furthermore proves that seemingly unlike Star Wars, there's no real signs of superhero fatigue to be seen for miles. Disney, Marvel, and Pixar keeps the superhero craze going with multiple super movies every year. What do you think of my first movie review? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If I get more chances in the future, especially during the school year, I might make more movie reviews and hopefully develop my review style as time goes on. Hope you all enjoy my first review and hope you get to watch Incredibles 2 in the theaters. And nope, I am not sponsored by Disney or Pixar in any way.